Hello and welcome to another episode of my Not Your Average Bible Studies. My name is Allie with Amory Speaks, and this is a metaphysical reading of a part Christian. I don't know what I would call myself. I mean, I'm not. I don't like to give labels, really. So, although this is a brand new reading for me, I've never read the New Testament before. Very familiar, of course, with Jesus, and I've read other spiritual texts and other religious texts even, but had yet to look at the New Testament. So, if you're interested and you're new, welcome. Thanks so much for clicking here and checking out my video. We're going to pick it up in chapter 17 in just a minute. But if you're listening and interested in hearing my own personal walk up to why I am doing this little side series and a little bit about my own beliefs and ideas and things like that that have led me to doing the reading, I have a couple of episodes before I had started these, which now we're on session 32, I should probably say here. So if you want to hear the beginnings or before the beginnings, I have some links in the description to take you back in time and get you up to date with the whys and the hows of what's going on with my metaphysical reading here of the New Testament. But welcome. And with that said, this is not a traditional reading in any sense, and I'm not from a traditional background, so disclaimers, please excuse me for mispronunciations or a lack of overall knowledge of like where the story's actually going or who some of the people might be, or if they play larger roles somewhere else in other gospels or stories or histories. I'm not any sort of expert. I'm a mere student here, trying something new and listening and looking for my own versions of truth within here, seeing what the text in Scripture speaks to me and speaking on that. And so if you're interested in hearing that, welcome. And if you are a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back and listening again. Really appreciate everyone who joins and listens to me. Thank you so much. Sacred Sunday has become a really integral part of my life, and has birthed so many different little routines and happy exercises, practices, and things that exposure points that I just didn't think that I would ever be doing. But here I am. So thanks for coming along with the journey. I forgot to say, but today is Sunday, July 6th, 2025. I did mention this will be episode or session number 32, and we will be picking up at the start of chapter 17, Matthew. I am reading out of a little pocket Gideon's Bible. It is King James Version, 1973 edition. And I really do like kind of the old-timey language of it all. It sends me on dictionary runs and etymologies and into historical references and things as well. So I really have enjoyed so far reading and doing this discovery. So yeah, I guess we'll pick it up and we'll see where it takes us today. Chapter 17. And after 6 days, Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringeth them up into a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias talking with him. Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elias. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud, which said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him." And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were sore afraid. And Jesus came and touched them and said, "Arise, and be not afraid." And when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save Jesus only. What an interesting experience and tale and depiction. So many different references to me, thinking metaphysically, thinking of the great logos of the sun, of light, truth, and raw information that is encoded within the light. It's such a wonderful and awe-inspiring scene, for sure. One thing that I did want to just touch on also is this sort of level of experience that it goes through, right? With being taken up alone with Jesus onto a mountaintop in itself is sort of a great invitation all on its own, even if, he was to just sit there and have a conversation or to just sit in silence, and then you have this wonderful experience where you see his radiance, light energy, the brighter self, the higher self, etheric or astral, however we want to look at those, or put different kinds of names to them, or not put them there at all and just leave them as they are, to see the beauty of truth shining, perfection. Is one thing, and to hear in conversation these epic beings, and like I said at the start here, especially, this is a good first to point at. I don't have a lot of reference of even who like Moses would be to Jesus, and what's the time reference? How long ago was that guy supposed to really have been? How many generations before him? I don't really know. He's supposed to be like a great grandfather? Is he just is supposed to be a well-known ancestor? Is it like just a William Wallace, King Arthur figure kind of thing that you would think of for basic, European heritage or something? To me, like having someone like that appear? Or is it someone, closer in time? I'm not sure. And same thing with Elias. I don't know. They claim this prophet name a lot, and I guess I should look these things up. Maybe I'll do that before next Sunday. That might be my own personal homework message here. But anyways, to see that, and then I like the answer about, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elias. The tabernacle in itself is another thing which I, have brief exposures to, and I've heard different people talking different ways about it. Is it a vessel? Is it an altar? Is it a church? Is it supposed to be a physical building? Is it supposed to be a point of sacrifice? Is it a focal point for God to focus in on? Or an instrument for God to play through? I'm not quite sure, and I think sometimes all of these things kind of get mentioned a roundabout way, which is, I'm just a mere beginner and I've only had a couple of exposure points, so I could just be confused in the points that I've seen and need to seek a bit more clarity around that. Perhaps after I do, I'll hear even deeper versions there. But to me, the threes speaks, mind, body, spirit, the 3 layers, positive, negative, and neutrality. This wonderful message of having 3 of these essences, these energies, these prismatic beings, and wanting to honor them in a way, and wanting to hold space for them and to bring them into the reality space, to have a true point of contact with something that seems so out of this world, right? And then it's interesting too, and because when I first read this and when I read this, each time I read it, it's like, while he spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And it's almost like, oh, is it scary? It's going to say, don't do that or something, It's like almost, it's so funny how immediate, habitual, sort of negative, authoritarian, excuse me, or a tyrannical sort of overarching thing wants to creep in. And yet it's met with love. It's met with a beautiful message, and again, it's interesting because it doesn't even acknowledge the question or to build the tabernacles or anything like that. So is that meaning it's not necessary, or it's not needed, or perhaps they did it, and that's, but it says while he spoke, basically, yet, and there's the yet in there. And so it's kind of like the translation seems to depict that it happened straight away as sort of a disruption to that. And then maybe that's just saying, like it's not needed, I am well pleased. Ye hear him, but to hear that in itself, just like it's sparked in me in the reading, it had that lingering, almost a fear, almost, and I work and seek honestly to hold no fear for God, for this beautiful creation here, and to hold trust that it was created with purpose and benevolence and unconditional love. And still, as someone who's actively seeking that with conscious awareness, multiple times throughout my day, in deep ways for my own knowing, I know I'm doing these things, you know what I mean? Like, I can't say, and I don't know what those disciples were doing or what anyone else is doing, but that for if and when those of us who are not, or even those who are, it sparks this notion. And so for them to fall flat on their faces, and to just be scared, but again, for Jesus to say, do not fear, get up, don't be afraid, is in itself the answer. It is itself the truth of it. It's like, let go of those habitual autonomic responses, let go of that mind control, let go of those false infringements and those imprisonments that we've stenciled onto ourselves, enforcing instructions that are incorrect, that are in fact inorganic and not part of the organic. The organic doesn't want you to do that at all. And then again, it makes me wonder and makes me want to see what will happen when we don't do that. What if they stood tall? What if they were not afraid? Just like, what if Peter wasn't afraid, and the ship, when he walked out and Jesus said, oh, ye of little faith, why doubt? Because what if he didn't? And what if we don't, But what a hard work it is for whatever reasons, for some reasons. But if we let go of the seeking of the reason to just say, move through it, next time better, we're getting closer, I feel. I'll reread 7 and we'll keep it going. And Jesus came and touched them and said, arise and be not afraid. And when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save Jesus only. And as they came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, tell the vision to no man, until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead. And again, it's the forethought, it's the miraculous mastery of patience and temperance, to knowing your planned death, to knowing your time here, to knowing the journey so forwardly. It's a gift and a burden. But But also, if we choose to live our life and in the great notion that any day it could be the day, every day he might show up. It could be the day he calls you home. Are you ready or not? Will you answer the call? And will you be, that type of call you don't have a choice to answer or not? Much like that, the parable he spoke on earlier about the man calling everyone to the wedding, or just being picked off the street. Are you ready or not? You could be called at any day. You could be met with that. And will you be ready? I want to be. I think that I will put my best foot forward as to saying, bring a challenge. I think I can. The little engine that could. Here we are. But anyways, to know those things and to be able to say with great gravity and purpose, don't tell anyone about this. Again, it reminds me of the last, I think it was in 16 at the start of the chapter when they were pulling in ship somewhere, and he asked, who do they say I am? And then who do you think I am? The Son of Man, Christ, Jesus Christ. And he said, tell no one that. Just like after he's done healings for people and he said, tell no one what I did for you. That humility, that promise of knowing that you don't need to seek an egotistical pillar to stand on. You don't need fame. You don't need to be well known, because if you do good work, the work will speak for itself. And it speaks after the work is done, because that's how work shows. And it's not supposed to be fed back retribution in that kind of direct way. You're supposed to have been paid in the doing of the gift, of the service. And then you let it go to be free and move on to your next great thing, your next service provided. You don't cling on to and entangle yourself in past doings and seek to hold up these points, these pivotal points and markers, like I did that and you should trust me because of that time and this time. It's like, no, if you believe, then you believe. If you're seeking truth and you have a notion of truth here in me, then that's all we need. That's it. That speaks for itself. It doesn't have to be proof, and it doesn't have to be the same. It will never be, in fact, the same as last time. It can't be. But anyways, getting a little bit off track. Let's pick it back up. At 10, right? And his disciples asked him, saying, why then say the scribes that Elias must first come? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Elias truly shall come first, and restore all things. But I say unto you that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they liked. Whatever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. And when they were come to the multitude, then came to him certain man. And I have underlined to this because it's in italics in my Bible here. Who is this certain man? I'm gonna have to look it up, but it must be someone. It must be a person. Why else would it be italicized and put in here in this way, right? Came a certain man, kneeling down to him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic. And I love how they spell lunatic in a different way. And sore vexed, for oftentimes he falleth into the fire, and oft into the water. And I brought him to thy disciples, and they could not cure him. Then Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him hither to me. And I love this. I highlighted this in a different color. Sometimes I highlight some of the things that Jesus says personally, sort of verbatim, that speak to me directly. I highlight them in blue instead of yellow or orange. Because I think they speak of the Master's walk. I think they speak of, from his point of view, And dare I say, not in a comparative sort of way, but in a lonely path that it is to walk in a time when we see so many around us suffering, so many around us, choosing poor decisions and facing bad consequences, and then claiming victimhood about it, complaining, sorely symptomatic of the repercussions that they brought upon themselves. And it's just like, I feel such pain and empathy for these people, such an anguish of chasing of tails, negative self-fulfilling prophecies, that just play on my heartstrings a lot. And I know I have my own things, and I'm not trying to cast out there some kind of shadowy badness and evilness that I don't harbor inside my own self. But I see a gradient and a depth that is much stronger out there. And the one that is within myself, I seek to brighten. I seek to ask it, why? Why are you this way? What do you need? Yes, you're poking at a problem. Yes, you're having a mean critique. Yes, you're in pain, but what is behind it? What's the next step? What's the way to mediate? Make it better. Why do we have to just make it worse? Why do we have to just amplify and overextend and push and hurt? Can't we have another option? Can't we assess that actually really that does feel bad? Don't want to do that. There isn't any positivity or productivity in that for betterment, for getting back to the Father, to the truth, who we truly are. And I know that's what I'm seeking for myself in my own ways. I know I can only follow my heart, the Father, Jesus, those words and notions that speak in the quiet of my mind from the depth of my heart. Because there are many things that speak from echoes loudly in the brain and bump around in space inside of you that are not even of you, that are negative loopings, that are a blaring of some old record, some tape stuck on repeat somewhere. And noticing that those things are not of us, that those are not honest words from Father, from Holy Spirit, from Jesus, from your higher self, from somebody in close past in your, who's passed on, who lives in spirit with you, grandmother, grandfather, parent, a child, someone very close to you who you feel leads you. These honest points of connectivity, of truth and love, their loudness is much different than an amplified volume. It comes from a weight, a gravity, a depth within, it comes only in silence. When we allow the silence to finally become so loud, then in there do we hear the depths of our truth, our true selves. We hear the Father. We hear those, we get those glimpses, But anyways, I'm sort of off on a tangent, and now I've gotten pretty far off track, and we're pretty much on time for ending. So, just to say here that I'm in the middle of this part here. My son's playing Joy to the World. I can hear it on his piano out there. He's practicing. All right. We're going to go with it. We'll have a little bit of an extended talk and keep going. Because comes this man, right, with a son who is vexed, sorely vexed. I find this so interesting too, about how the disciples can't heal him, and how there's this opposing happenings. And this happens a lot when we see these sort of possessions, or we see disease, we see, like you said, lunatic, but lunacy, mental disorders, all these things. It's these really amplified, opposing portions of a struggle between a person, right? And he says oftentimes he falls into the fire, often into the water. And what does that really even mean? The first time I read that, I wasn't quite sure. And sometimes people just say, oh, it's just a literal translation, But funny enough, sometimes there's a cure for infections and a cure for inflammations. That is the hot, cold treatments. Energy can be invigorated. The spiritual body can be invigorated with those types of things. So, I thought of that, but then I also thought about sort of the pain and persecution that is the attempt to burn away things, or to, burn something into ash, that is a different sort of purging or purifying. And also the water of drowning and of that kind of waterboarding, kind of traumaticness that comes along with water as well. There's such a negative aspects of the torture chambers, so to speak, of the negative operations of negative systems that display themselves in those ways as well. And sometimes I think those who struggle from whatever these things are, lunacy in some kind of way, these internal struggles, they manifest out in symptomatic ways, where they seek out almost self-harm, or they seek out almost to try to harm that thing within them that they think is so bad, or that perhaps it is a badness within them, it is a possession of sorts from an external energy, and they are seeking to harm that, or even just harm the self so much that they get away from that thing. And so they go out to those sort of torture-like self-harm mechanisms, fire and water, perhaps. That's what he means, maybe in quite a literal sense. But yeah, it's, so they bring him in. The man says he's already brought him to the disciples couldn't heal them. Jesus is a bit like, the disciples can't heal them clearly. Maybe it's almost like a feeling of, I'm trying to teach these people about the clarity in health and wellness, alchemy energies, and they're struggling obviously to heal others because they must have clunky shadow work and light energies going in within their own practices, right? And it's hard to be when things seem kind of plain as well. This is another thing, that the simplistic teachings in the practice, I get off and on with my own self in these ways, and I get sort of frustrated with the parts of me because some things seem so simplistic, but then the practice is difficult, and I get frustrated with the self, because I have these envisionments, these understandings that seem, so much grander, 5D imagination, higher up, so beautiful, and then to drag them down into clunky 3D, my masterpiece Michelangelo artwork that I see inside my brain turns into a literal stick figure sketching drawing on the paper that I'm stuck looking at, and they don't match. Right? I'm sure anyone who's sort of ever tried to draw or anything like that, you understand that. Like, there's a difference in quality. And yet both are just as real. Looking at it out there on the page of what I did, it lasts, it's strong, it's right in front of me, proof in the pudding kind of thing. It sucks, it's ugly, it's got clunky edges, and it's just there. Just as when I close my eyes or get in that space, that image, that song, that sound, that beautiful person, is right there in front of me. Or even, like, you could say in front of you, if it was, this is probably better for him because he probably had real people in front of him. You have a real person in front of you that with beautiful qualities, with, and with depth and shadows and form that you can't capture with a stick drawing. Or, same thing with landscapes or beautiful sunset, the colorations. How often I've worked to bring out combinations of color that they don't come out as beautiful and as vibrant as what I'm seeing. But anyways, he so graciously says, bring hither him to me, right? So we'll pick up where I've left off actually at 18. And Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Then came the disciples to Jesus apart, and said, why could not we cast him out? And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief. For verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of a mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove. And nothing shall be impossible unto you. And I think, much like anybody hears that phrase, I think, yeah, it's metaphorical, and metaphysical. But does that mean for sure that we're going to move a mountain? Mountains have a place and a space and a containment of creation that is under different laws, perhaps. The natural world, and its creativity and its time clocks and its capacity for discovery and its place setting, and it means something, It has a different lifespan and a different quality to it. And not to say or take away that perhaps, of course, God is outside of that, and God can do anything, and God could speed up the clocks or move whatever he wanted to. But I think the creation, the containment's been made here. He put those mountains there for great reasons and purposes, so I don't think he'd be moving them because he doesn't want to move them. But the point being, I think, in the lesson to understand that the Son of Man, the fractal source of God, creator source, energy, creator consciousness within us, within man, has that power to do that. And you have to have that notion to know that it's real. And I think it's been shown before in a, or perhaps no, it was later in the verses. I think it's later in the verses that I'll speak about when I come up to it as well, because it got me thinking. But Jesus passes by an olive tree which doesn't bear fruit, and he sort of says that its life is over, or be gone, or something like that, and it just goes away. It just crumples to, and it's is wilted and done. And that sort of, I guess, is sort of a proof, a more tangible proof as to what he's saying about we do have a power over physicality and over the life here that is living and that is of creation here, that it is under our dominion as well and our control, but that we should be doing it from a loving place and space. But again, this I believe, the disciples here are thinking metaphysically and metaphorically, and still they bring it back to the sort of physical teachings, and then they say, here in verse 21, which I think I'll just leave it here for verse 21 and close out the session. They sort of circle back to the beginning and say, howbeit this kind goeth not out, but by prayer and fasting. So they've, every fallback, every guidance has sort of been fast and pray, and these things will be rectified. Healings will be occurring. We'll know what, needs to happen. But this, they couldn't help him. And now it switches gears, and I'll pick it back up. Episode 33, we'll pick it back up for verse 22. Interesting enough, 30, perfect to start it off there. So I guess I'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Sunday. If you are listening Sunday, I hope you have a wonderful sacred Sunday. If it's any other day of the week, thanks for listening. Make it just as sacred. And hopefully I will catch you next week. If you are ever looking for anything from me in the meantime, I do offer different topics, meditations, metaphysical conversations, things about energetic systems, and light and shadow work on my YouTube and BitChute channels. If you are already finding me there, you can find links in the description to some other content and playlists that I've done in the past. I do have a website, amariespeaks.com, that has some more personal information, some of my own personal writings, as well as a tools page that has third-party references, videos, links, books, and things all across a spectrum of different topics of introspection, spirituality, and happiness to help us on our journey and to keep learning and to be eternal students, which is the path that I'm on. So thank you for witnessing my contributions here to the collective. Thanks for tuning in here to my podcast. And I hope I catch you next time. Bye for now.